Let's bring in MS Now contributor Inzamam Rashid out of Dubai, Washington Post Pentagon reporter Dan Lamothe, and retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Peter Mansour. Inzamam, after suggesting Iran was playing ball, now President Trump is threatening specific infrastructure sites. He also claims the U.S. is negotiating with a new regime. Who is he referring to, and where do the talks stand?
Well, look, it's difficult to give an answer to exactly who the U.S. is talking directly to. President Trump said it was a new and more reasonable regime inside Iran that the U.S. is having discussions with, but there is no clear sign of exactly who that is, and in fact whether those conversations are taking place. Secretary Rubio this morning also saying in an interview that he couldn't declare who those people are because of sensitivities. My take is that it could potentially be the parliamentary leader inside Iran, Mohammad Ghalibaf. This is someone who has directed a lot of his anger and hatred, particularly towards Israel, using social media, not as much to the US. And that may give an indication that he could be someone who is having these conversations. But what we do know is that the US and Iran have been talking via Pakistan. We know the US passed on this 15-point peace plan last week, and Iran did respond via Pakistan as well, but there doesn't seem to be conversations directly happening, and that's what Iran has come out today and said once again. They're denying all talks and are taking place, and have actually said that the US demands are unrealistic, illogical, and excessive. In a statement shared with MS Now, a spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry said that US officials say whatever they want. We have not had any negotiations with the US. What was there was a request for negotiations from the US that was sent to us by some countries. We do not evaluate these claims honestly. We have experienced past experiences with flesh and blood, a betrayal that was committed twice during negotiations. And that betrayal is something that even the president had spoken about on Air Force One yesterday. He said that you never know with Iran. We negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up. So whilst these talks seem to be going on, or they seem to be going on in the president's eyes, we are still seeing destruction, a lot of fighting, a lot of threats towards energy infrastructure by the president in this statement today as well, specifically talking about energy infrastructure, desalination plants as well. We know that if the US specifically target those sites, they could have huge impact on the people inside Iran. We know that Israel has already targeted some of those sites already, and then we would see an Iranian response on similar sites across the Gulf, like this one behind me, Jebel Ali desalination plant, but also a huge port here as well. So if those attacks do go ahead by the US and Israel, we would expect the response to be strong too, Anna.
And Dan, I mentioned it at the top, but take us through your reporting on the Pentagon's plans for potential ground operations. What kind of missions are they preparing for?
I think there's a range of options on the table. There's been a lot of discussion of what do these Marines do as they've now begun to arrive in the region. That could be something with Kark Island, the major oil export hub. That could be something along the coast, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz. There's a lot of discussion of what does the United States need to do to try and make that waterway safe. It wouldn't be a surprise to me at this point to see perhaps raids along the coast as they're looking for weapons caches and other things that, pose a threat to shipping.
Colonel Mansour, I mean, realistically, could we really just see targeted operations? Dan's reporting, using special ops, some infantry as well, as opposed to a full-scale invasion. What's the distinction?
The targeted operations will not open the Strait of Hormuz nor keep it open. To do that, you're going to have to seize both sides of the strait. That includes islands that are in the Gulf, potentially points along the Iranian coastline, but maybe not. If you can take the islands and fortify them and put air defenses on those islands, then you could potentially open the strait once you clear the mines that have been laid by Iran. But, we love to hear about these targeted special forces operations because they're quick, they're clean, they don't have permanent boots on the ground. But in this case, they're not going to get the job done.
Iran's parliament speaker was quoted as saying the enemy is openly sending a message of negotiation and secretly planning a ground attack, adding that Iran would set U.S. troops on fire. And by the way, this is supposedly one of the potential negotiators the U.S. would be dealing with. Colonel, if President Trump were to send American soldiers into the fray, what kind of resistance would they face?
As much as Iran can put up. It'll mean ground fighting with whatever troops are in the area. Those troops on the ground will become targets for all the drones and missiles that Iran can launch at them. And I'm afraid there will be casualties. So I'm sure the military is planning to defend whatever troops it puts in harm's way with various assets. But this will be an escalation of the conflict for sure.
Dan, in terms of timeline, I mean, the president put 4 to 6 weeks as the marker at the beginning of the military action. If these troops are sent in, if there are now boots on the ground, is that going to extend this timeline?
I think it becomes increasingly unpredictable how long this could drag out. Even if they have a plan where it's, for the sake of argument, 2 to 3 weeks of limited operations, trying to clean out threats, things of that sort. When you start getting bogged down, would they need to bring in additional personnel later? What would they do to fortify? How good are the air defenses? I think there's a lot of open questions that make it really hard to say, oh, yeah, we'll just declare victory 2 weeks from now and perhaps nothing has really fundamentally changed.
Yeah, and the president has moved the goalposts recently on this war, from stopping a nuclear program that he claimed to have obliterated last summer to now focusing on some sort of oil takeover. Dan, in the course of your reporting, have you observed how these pivots from the president actually affect how the Pentagon game plans this fight?
I think it becomes unpredictable what he will actually approve. Some of these plans actually well predate this conflict, weeks, months, years in some cases. There has been a discussion over the years of if they had to take Kharg Island, how would they do it? That's the kind of thing that gets war gamed. Some of that, there's even open discussion of past war games on that issue. But in this circumstance, in this situation, with this particular threat, what that looks like at this moment, they need to adjust as they go. And that really presents additional challenges for the commanders and the actual personnel that would have to carry out the mission.
Colonel, the president told the Financial Times that the U.S. could take Iran's critical Kharg Island very easily. Now, we've had other military experts on the show say seizing Kharg would make the U.S. troops essentially sitting ducks and that Iran could simply shut down the oil pipelines. They believe this would be a total ineffective strategy. What are your thoughts on any Kharg Island plans?
The president is enamored with seizing an economically important target and thinking that that will end the war by forcing Iran to negotiate. It will not. This is a regime that is ideological in nature. You can shut down 100% of its oil exports and it will take the pain and keep on fighting. You also, to get to Kharg Island, looking at the operational picture here, you got to sail all the way up the Gulf, making whatever fleet that does that a target for all the drones and missiles in the area. So it's not a given that we can get to Kharg Island with a naval force. And if you try to get there with airborne troops or Osprey helicopters / planes, then they become targets as well. And then once the troops are on the ground, again, they'll be targeted by Iranian forces. So, the president might be enamored with holding Kharg Island hostage. I don't think it's going to work for him strategically or diplomatically.
In Zamam, the region was completely rocked by attacks over the weekend. We outlined some of those at the top, but now Iran has set a new deadline of its own to attack U.S. and Israeli universities today. This is according to a statement published by Iranian state media. What should we make of this new ultimatum? Are they taking a page out of Trump's playbook?
Yeah, perhaps, but it's not really been the greatest playbook, has it, by the president? I think many analysts would probably agree with that. And Iran, you've got to remember, has the upper hand here, Anna, because they have control of the Strait of Hormuz, and that's having a crippling effect on the world's economy. So look, when Iran says that they specifically are going to target a place, and it usually happens in retaliation to some US or Israeli strikes inside Iran. We've heard huge bombardments over the last 4 days. I was on the phone to an ambassador last night inside Tehran, and in the background you could hear all the bombing, the explosions taking place. Then Iran usually announces that they're going to target specific areas, usually in the Gulf, and they usually follow through with that. We haven't heard anything about targeting universities today as of yet, but it is something that they announced, tried to get in the front foot by making this sort of announcement to target universities, particularly US universities. And now, as a result, we're seeing education happening at home in the likes of the UAE and other parts of the Gulf as well. But clearly, this is all in retaliation to an increase in Israeli strikes into Iran, which has really ramped up over the last few days. And as a result, the strikes inside the Gulf have also ramped up over the last few days as well. They are now here calling for an end to this conflict. They want to see the US and Israel essentially finish the job inside Iran. They are saying that that should be a complete regime change. They're probably right now not happy with the fact that President Trump has announced that we are talking to a new regime, because the likes of the UAE and Gulf countries probably don't see that that is the case.